welcome to episode 38 of the Wasting Time podcast. I'm Chris. I'm here with Nick. How's it going, Nick?
Hello. That was very, very jolly intro. You got out the right side of bed this morning with a spring in your step.
I think so. In a pretty good mood. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Glad the weekend's here. What's been happening?
What has been happening? I feel we're a bit out of the rhythm of these because it's been a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks even maybe since our last episode with the Rational Anthem guys.
Well, me even more so, and if that's what you're.
That's very going by. Yeah,
and I did listen to the episode and didn't appreciate the threats from the Rational Anthem. So we'll see how that goes down when they decide to grace these.
Yeah, when they're over this way.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good to hear from them and good to hear what they've been up to. Really been enjoying some of their music actually. So, which is completely new to me. So, it was a nice, good episode. So well done, rolling solo.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man. It was weird at first, but they, as I think I said in the intro to the last episode, they made it easy. So, thanks again to them for that. So what's been happening with you? You been up to much? You been to any shows recently? Did you make it to that men's Zingers tour?
No, I'm really bad.
Oh, you didn't make it in the end?
I'm really bad, yeah. I think it's just bad timing for me at the moment. Got a hell of a lot on with work and some kind of other commitments outside of work. So I didn't, and Spanish Love Songs was supporting as well, so I was really disappointed to not be able to make it. But yeah. Hopefully we can make up for my lack of attendance at shows at Punkfest by, seeing lots of bands, I guess, really.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll more than make up for it.
Anyway, you clearly didn't catch the men's Zingers either, so.
Well,
are they still
at the time of recording, it hasn't.
Okay.
It's tonight at the time of recording, so but I'm out of town.
But you're not going either, so.
I'm not going.
So fuck you for making me feel bad.
I was also tempted. Simple Plan were in London last night, but they were opening for Bowling for Soup, who I don't mind, but I couldn't be asked to go to Brixton Academy for that.
Yeah, I see they're doing a big tour with New Found Glory, aren't they? An American tour, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah. That just got announced this week. Speaking of New Found Glory, did you check out their new song?
I did, yeah. It's not for me. I don't think. No, it's not the right side of New Found Glory for me.
See, interestingly, for me, I don't love the song. I feel like the hook's not as good as it could be, and the lyrics are a bit lazy, maybe. But I like the sound. Gives me hope for the album because that's the kind of New Found Glory sound I like. Because I really didn't like the last two albums, and this,
like the double time
it's just
kind of
like
drums,
polished pop punk, basically. Yeah. Because you remember on that last album, they had loads of synths going on and stuff, and it just didn't really work for me. Whereas, this gives me hope for this album.
Are they still working with? Are they still working with Ryan Key from Yellow Card or not? I wonder if he's like plays any role in terms of, or played any role in terms of the writing. Yeah, the writing and recording process. Yeah,
not that I'm aware of. As far as I'm aware, he's only been like a touring member.
Yeah,
I think I haven't heard anything to the contrary of that.
Okay.
But yeah, that album's out at the end of May, so we've got a bit of a wait for that.
Fair enough.
Even though Apple Music leaked it by accident, so I think it's all over the internet if you want to find it.
Okay.
Which is a bit bad. You mentioned Spanish Love Songs before. I think you were telling me the other day you're quite into their new album. Is that right?
I am. Yeah. No, I'm really enjoying it. It is very emo though, which. Yeah.
Do you like it? Do you like his lyrics?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I mean, when you're going down that route, I think it's harder to kind of make a connection, I guess, really, and you'd kind of really need to have experience of kind of that, of where they are in that moment and where he is in that moment to kind of have the connection with the music. But if in terms of songs and the way they're put together, I think they're really really listenable and good fun in terms of like the hooks and stuff. But what do you think?
Well, I don't want to be too harsh on it because, like, on a personal connection, like he came and did this show about just over a year ago, and made the effort to come to my flat when he just landed in the UK for the first time, been awake for 38 hours, and it was a great episode. Like, if anyone wants to go back and listen to it, really sound guy, and like, so I feel like I owe him a little bit, and I feel bad in that I don't not feeling this album at all. It's got a few sort of decent cliche pop punk moments, like musically, but the lyrics just seem so. It's just
you just can't connect with it, I guess. Like,
no, and I don't. Some of it feels. I'm not saying it is forced, but it feels forced to me. Some of the lyrics, and because it's always sort of depressing lyrics and stuff, and obviously I get it, you've got to be cathartic about these things, and like, but I don't know, it just feels a bit forced with his lyrics sometimes.
Yeah,
did you like? Because I really liked the album before, and like obviously had a similar kind of theme to it, but the lyrics were a bit more creative, whereas these are just a bit like. Ugh.
Yeah, and
Go
I
on,
think I just think if you can't connect with something that is quite deep and meaningful and really kind of feelings driven, then it's I guess it's really hard to connect with the music. Unlike a song that's about girls, boys, and cars and money,
Right. Another thing I saw. Did you see MXPX released a collaboration with Bad Cop covering a Dwarves song yesterday?
I did, the Salt Lake City. I listened to it this morning, actually. Yeah, it's all right. I don't think it's
It's very. I don't know if you've ever listened to the Dwarves much, but it's very Dwarves. Catchy little fun punk songs. Basically.
Yeah, it's all right. I can't see myself, I guess, going back to it too much, but
yeah, sure.
Nice little release. Anything else you've been listening to?
So there's a new British punk band called Hell's Ditch, and they feature members from bands who've been around the scene, like River Jumpers and Bad Ideas. Just want to give a shout out to Chris, who's in this band, who's always been said really nice things about our podcast, and I think he was in Bad Ideas, and like he reached out to us when he was in that band a few years ago. But so him and some of his friends from the scene have like formed this new band. They're going to be at Manchester Punk Fest, so we'll hopefully try and maybe get them on the show then. And they've released their first single, which is available on all streaming platforms now. It's called Vacant Hearts.
Should we give it a listen?
Here it is. Yeah, let's do it.
Nice. Sounds promising.
Yeah.
Have they got?
I always liked.
Have they got a full length kind of that's going to follow up? I assume, or like an EP, or.
I don't know if it's an EP or a full length. He did send me the press thing. I can't remember what he said. We can discuss that with them when they're on the show. But I just want to say, I do like the guy. It's the singer. The guy singing was the singer in River Jumpers. Sorry, and I've always liked his voice. Like, it's a strong voice, sings in the UK accent. Really reminds me of what we were doing in Spineless Yes Men back in the day. So I've always had a soft spot for River Jumpers. So excited to see what these guys do with Hell's Ditch.
Cool. And I guess you've seen some of have you seen some of their respective bands kind of at shows down in London as well?
I feel like I've seen Bad Ideas before. River Jumpers definitely, because I think when I was in Spineless, we played with them at least twice. I think
Okay.
they were always a good live band. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what this new act's like live.
Cool, yeah. One of many to look forward to at Manchester Punk Fest anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Cool.
Which is ever approaching.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to discuss before we get into today's episode?
I don't know. You see Billy Bragg hanging out with Taylor Swift the other day at the NMA Awards?
No, I missed that.
He presented an award with Taylor Swift and totally fanboyed the fact that he's doing it. So yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Really, did he?
Yeah, maybe we could see some form of collaboration. Maybe. I don't know if you've ever seen Billy Bragg do his. He did like an award show collaboration with what's her name? The one that did that Glow show, the singer.
Kate Nash.
Yeah. He did the.
that was a few years back, wasn't it?
He did. It was New England, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we could get see Taylor doing the same thing.
You never know. That's funny because I remember the last time he spoke about Taylor Swift, it was slagging her off. Remember when she took her music off Spotify a few years ago or something?
Right.
So he's obviously got over that.
Yeah, when he's been forced into giving out an award at a ceremony. Yeah, he's sharp.
Yeah.
Sharp changed his mind. But no, she's done quite a lot though, hasn't she, recently, to kind of come out and kind of criticise, I guess, some of her past and some of the industry and how she works as well. She's got a thing on Netflix at the moment, hasn't she? So might actually have
I've been meaning
to watch
that actually.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe we should move on with
let's do it.
Yeah, with our interview anyway. So yeah, we had Jonah Matranga from the band Far, from the band Gratitude. Does a lot of solo work as well, by the name of One Line Drawing, and yeah, we had a nice long chat with him. So here it is. Okay, so we are joined by Jonah Matranga. Have I pronounced that right?
That's perfect, man. Well done.
Awesome. How are you doing, buddy?
Good job, Nick.
I'm doing really well. Just having a sweet, mellow morning, working away. Been looking forward to this. How y'all doing?
Good. Yeah. It's Wednesday, hump day.
Yeah, good. Thanks, man.
We're both Monday to Friday guys. So
Yep.
it's halfway through the week. So yeah, ploughing on. Almost the end is in sight.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's early evening for us both. Jonah, where are you based at the minute?
Oh yeah, so I'm in San Francisco. So it's
nice.
It's getting closing on lunchtime over here.
What part of San Francisco are you based in?
I'm out by the ocean, sort of near the Golden Gate Bridge on the west side of San Francisco, kind of in the northwest corner of the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
How long have you been there then? Because you're originally from Massachusetts, right? I mean, when did the move over from the kind of east to west come about?
University.
Okay.
I went to university down near LA and then moved to Sacramento just after university to start the rock thing, and then ended up having my daughter out here, and so now West Coast is home.
Yeah. Do you get much? Did you have still a family back over there? Do you get back over?
I've got some close friends and a lot of memories, but I have a very small family, and now my sister lives on the West Coast now. My mom lives on the West Coast. So we all kind of migrated out here slowly over the past 30-odd years.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
So how's 2020 kind of shaping up for you now then? Obviously we're a month in now. Have you got much planned and lined up for the year?
Kind of on purpose, no. And I mean, my usual thing that I would have lined up is touring, and I've got a couple of things. I know I'm playing a woman's 40th birthday in Germany in July, and so I'm gonna build around that. Kind of a lot of the ways that I love to tour is when someone wants to do a personal show, then that'll take me to that part of the world, and then I'll try and build things around that. So someone wrote to me from Norway, where I've never played, and so I might get to go up there and play. But in terms of, I'm actually really not focusing on that right now because over the last 5 years, I wrote a book about raising my daughter and, making music and stuff. And then 2018 now was the 20th anniversary of a record called Water and Solutions that I was a part of. And so I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on things, and I have a million songs built up. So my real focus for the year, honestly, is just to put out some new music. I'm building a community on my website that I want to have keep growing. It's kind of a community for people who don't want to deal with the rest of the bullshit of the internet and the music networkers and all that stuff, and just wants to be in direct contact, that's feeling really good. So lots of work to do on that. So I would say not a lot of specific plans, which is on purpose, and hopefully a lot of room to get done a lot of shit that's been in my head for a while.
Cool. I suppose as well you were pretty busy kind of back end of last year as well, though, right? You were over here for a while. Then.
Exactly. And last 6 months of last year were pretty much full on. So I'm also resting from that. That is very, very true.
How was your time in the UK last year?
Oh, I mean, it's the best. I mean, I've been coming over there since near the end of FAR, since '97. And it's just been, I'm pretty sure that I've played more shows in the UK in the past 20 years than I have in the US.
Okay.
If you had in mainland Europe, then for sure, I think it's just
right.
Yeah, it's a very I just love it over there. I love it just being over there, and I really love singing over there. There's just something over there that really works for what I do.
Any particular favorite parts of the UK? Haven't been here so much.
Well, it's funny. I mean, obviously London is a world-class city, and like all world-class cities, it's getting overcrowded and totally fucked. And it's still fucking London. It's pretty badass. So I love a lot of things around there. And then Newcastle happens to be a place that I've just had a lot of fun in over the past while. There was a place called Trillions that I used to play a lot.
Yeah, I've seen you in Trillions with Gratitude. I must have been 10, 15 years ago maybe.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you kind of do your own solo thing there as well.
Yeah, so there's a dude called Steve Jones there.
I know Steve.
Yeah, we know him.
Yeah. I mean, him and Big G, him and Gordon are two of my favorite people in rock world, and just the whole Newcastle crew. They're kind of the two people who I met first, and they kind of stuck in my head. But there's that whole community I've had some real nice shows in that city in particular. And the North is just, I mean, I gotta say, I've had a lot of fun, and I'm not just trying to be diplomatic, but like all over the UK, and it's just, so in and of itself, it really does have a feeling. And within the UK, I would say different places have different personalities, but the North definitely appeals to my kind of like sassy, give you some shit, curse a lot, but with a smile on your face, kind of aggressive, but in a sweet way, kind of drunk, but in a sweet way. I don't even drink, but like just that vibe. I find the North really has that, and Newcastle is a town that really has that. And I enjoy that. It's an environment in which I feel safe and fun and happy.
A bit of grittiness to it, I guess.
Yeah, a bit of grittiness. I mean, it's just East Coast, I mean, I grew up in, New England. So I've discovered in my adult life all of the thhave that were part of my childhood culture that were essentially, pretty direct imports from the UK. So I have a familiar feeling over there that I think is rooted in my childhood, and that I grew up in Boston and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah,
I saw you at a really small venue, the Surf Cafe this year. And it's very very intimate spot. You had a bit of trouble though, right, with some, I guess, unwanted guests. Right. I saw on your Instagram.
Yeah, that was frustrating. It's really sad sometimes because that show honestly was I'd never played Surf Cafe, and it was fucking brutal cold. That heading into winter UK cold that just gets in your bones. And so we arrived, and it just looked kind of weird. It was just kind of off in the middle of nowhere. Didn't really know what was going on. And we had, just like it touring is a grind already, and we were in the thick of that. So it was this intense thing, and I didn't know how I was going to go. And then the show just turned out so much fun, and I was having such a blast. And ultimately, my central takeaway is that it was a beautiful show. And it's true, now that you mention it, it was marred by, it's funny, when a whole room is talking when I'm playing, I don't care that much, because it's just sort of what the room is doing, and it's fine. But when there's a really quiet, sweet vibe, and a couple people are completely either unaware of it because they're so self-involved, or they're aware of it and they don't give a fuck, that's a tough one for me. And so that was that night. And it happened to be people who I'd had a really sweet history with. I'd played a personal show for them, and like been...
Oh wow! I mean, I assumed when I saw that, I assumed it was just because Surf Cafe, you get people kind of just come and go for drinks, in that area.
Right,
so
exactly.
When I saw that, I assumed that it was just obviously some passers-by,
Yeah, no, that was my fear going into the gig. Was like, this is one of those places someone might stumble into, not understand what the fuck's going on, and rightfully not care, because whatever, they're just having a drink. But it's a small enough room that there's no separation. So I was worried about that. That did not happen. But as it turns out, a couple people who I had really kind of gone above and beyond for in the past. It wasn't them particularly, but it was one of their friends. And then they were very defensive and protective of their friend. And I was like, how could you, of all people, not get it? It's just, so anyway, it was a strange and sad ending to the night. But honestly, until you mentioned it, that part had faded from my mind.
I'm sorry for bringing that
up. No,
nice one, Nick.
Yeah. No, I would have remembered eventually and stuff, but probably in the midst of talking about it.
I mean, seeing you though, I mean, your shows obviously come with a level of intimacy that comes with it, and I guess this is something it's not the first time you've had to deal with kind of, I guess, crowds that maybe some are totally kind of in that moment and some aren't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got any tactics? Do you have any tactics in terms of tackling it head on, or just?
I mean, the central, and actually the first time I ever uttered this perfect fucking tactic was opening for Thursday forever ago in the early aughts. And at a pretty big venue. And so, again, it was a big venue, and I wasn't expecting silence or anything, but the people up front were actually real cool. It was real sweet. And the whole vibe was feeling really good. And yeah, there was just a couple little fucking wankers up front. And at some point it just hit me. And it was just one of those great times when humility can really lead to a source of strength. And so I said, look, I know not everyone's here to see me, but I promise you no one came here to listen to you. And just that completely flipped the whole dynamic, because of course the rest of the crowd's like, yeah, fuck yeah, even if I don't like this guy, I respect that sentiment, and so I just try and focus on, even if you don't give a shit about me, understand that there are people who might have driven hours, might not have seen me in years, might have seen me a lot and really love the music, imagine it's an artist you really loved, and wouldn't you want it to be chill and respectful? And I try and make it more about the feeling in the room, because it's not about my ego. Like, I've played in noisy rooms and not noisy rooms and everything. Like, it's all good. It's more about when I'm in the audience, I love it when the audience is respectful of that we're all in there together. It's a public space. So it's not really the time to be, it's just like a movie theater. It's just like any public space. It's just conduct yourself with awareness that there are people around you experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
and to pay good money, to go
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Someone fucking next to them paid money, and they didn't pay. I think I may have specifically said that, like, they didn't, pay money to hear you talk to your buddy. So stop. And so that tends to work. That's a frame that it's nice. There's a phrase by a playwright called David Mamet that says, "Tell the truth. It's the easiest thing to remember." And what I like about that is that it's the truth. It gets around my bruised ego and is more truthfully about the feeling in the room, which is, I think, the most important thing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So that helped.
Okay, yeah. Jonah, the way we often like kind of structure these, obviously they kind of jump all over the place as you'd expect. But like one thing we do try and ask early on is like do the obvious thing and like just I wonder if you can like kind of take us back to the early days in Boston and like how you got into music. Like what were those moments like? What were those early experiences with music like? Like what are the ones that stick out that you remember the most?
That's a good one. And by the way, before I forget, I love that your podcast is called Wasting Time. Because
Thank you.
I mean, partly I just think it's great and sweet, and I love that. And also, there's an amazing spoken word performance thing called Wasting Time with Harry Davidovitz by this guy Danny Massang, this Jewish dude. That's kind of about his kind of it's kind of like a little memoir in audio form of him going through his life and figuring out what Jewishness was to him and blah blah. But the point is, I always really loved the wasting time thing. When I saw your podcast name, I was all excited. So Wasting Time with Harry Davidovitz. It's good shit. Anyway,
check it out.
Childhood in Boston. I mean, I had a pretty tracing it back the best I can. I had a pretty nuts childhood, a lot of poverty, a lot of chaos. And I think one of the times when life felt safe and good was when hippies would kind of come over to our little hippie shack and play guitar and stuff. I think that was probably a time when I felt safe and happy. So I think that's kind of where I got interested in the idea of music as a kind of a calming presence. So I remember that from a real young age. And my mom, who's not a particularly sort of, gifted singer or whatever, but she really loves to sing and she's really enthusiastic about it. And she would always sing to me and my sister. And I think that probably got through to me too. And so I was real curious about music from really young age. I think I probably got my first electric guitar in about, in middle school, about 6th or 7th grade or something like that. And the people who I bought it from happened to be making a movie about young people and music. And so they ended up making me the subject of this little documentary they did and they ended up calling it Jonah Wales, like Wails. But of course, the pun on Jonah and the Whale. And so, they never finished it. But I really remember shooting the performance parts of the movie. They paired me up with this rad punk band from Boston called the Dogmatics. And I remember us playing this Chuck Berry tune that the Stones had covered. So, and I remember filming that. And again, even though the movie never happened, I never even saw the footage. Just that process was really exciting for me, I think. And then, just playing the school talent show and shit and 8th grade graduation. And I guess the main thing I remember of all that is we played covers, but right from the beginning when I was into music, I was into writing my own songs. I think when everyone else wanted to practice their instrument or get really good at something, all I really wanted to do was put on my headphones and make recordings. And that is my early musical life for sure, is writing terrible poems and putting them to music. Lots of songs about feeling alone in the world and, stuff like that. And but they really helped me. They really, really helped me.
Cool. Yeah. So when did I guess you develop into the bands, and obviously I guess Far was your first kind of big band. Was there anything before that?
No, all terrible, student bands.
Yeah.
Just
right.
So I've had, a few terrible band names in high school, a couple more in college, around a few college and university. Oh yeah, sure. In order through high school through grade school, really starting about 7th grade. False Identity, Turbulence, Shot in the Dark, Fergus Martin and his Band of Woe, Missing Cat, and then I think that might have been it for high school, maybe. Then in college, there was Falling Rock. Pieces. I know, it's just so terrible. And it's all those first band names were all basically like post-punk pop bands, the high school ones. They're kind of Cars, Joe Jackson, Pretenders, Clash, U2, REM kind of vibes, just kind of peppy, angsty music. And then in college, Falling Rock was this kind of like hippie jam band kind of thing. And Big Booty was this kind of party rock kind of funk thing. Funk in air quotes for sure, in big white air quotes. And then I was in a band called Pieces of Fuck. And we were a more sort of like arty, crazy ass band. And our stated goal as the band went on is we performed until everyone in the audience had left. That was our show arc.
Some good success criteria you had that with that band then.
Yeah, this was pretty beautiful. And through it all, especially sort of towards the end of high school and into university, I was doing solo stuff too. The first thing I ever put out was a solo cassette. So I have nothing released with any of those wonderful band names on there. So I was doing solo stuff the whole way through. And so none of those band names were ever immortalized in a release, sort of sadly and happily. And by the time I got done with university, I was really excited about doing solo stuff. That just felt, just very interesting and simple to me. And I was looking for people to play with who wanted to do something more, not weird in any way, but just more that was ours. The bands that I was in university really weren't, Pieces of Fuck was entirely self-indulgent and fun, and Falling Rock and Big Booty were also really, really fun. And, we played some covers, we played a lot of parties again. It was more that kind of vibe. And so I wanted to be in a band where it was much more about the songwriting and about crafting something that was really our own deal. And that's where I met, and I went up to Sacramento one summer and met the guys that would become Far, and they were looking for a singer, the band that didn't want to be a traditional rock band. And so we had lots of differences, and we had a central idea in common, which kind of led us through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And you guys were together, what, for 10, 15 years? Like, good?
No, at the from the first practice to the last show, 8 years.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. 91 to 99. Well, even shorter than that, really.
Okay.
91 to 7 years. 7 years. Wow, it's kind of trippy.
You released quite a lot in that time with those guys, though, right?
We did all right. Yeah, we did all right. A couple of indie things, and then a couple on Sony, and then one more on Vagrant, and it was a really good run.
How was that for you personally, I guess, in terms of, you got Sony and Vagrant kind of starting knocking the door quite early, I guess, in your career. That must have been pretty exciting time for you at that moment.
It was.
Yeah, because you would have been, your early 20s or something at this point.
Yeah, there were honestly other things that were in the headlines, and that I was becoming a father right as I was turning 25. So I had been in Far for a few years then, but my impending fatherhood definitely upped the ante for what I wanted and needed out of a band, both artistically and financially. Yeah. So that was really what my mind was on, was how do I make this work without abandoning my daughter, basically.
Right.
And we were looking, because as someone who didn't have a dad around when I was a kid, I really did not want to repeat that cycle. And so we were, ironically, before she came along, we were thinking of ourselves more of the kind of an indie hardcore band. We were trying to get on labels like Victory and Revelation. What the fuck was that band? The first band to pull out. Oh God, Elm. Something about Elm. Deep Elm Records, I think.
Okay.
Oh, Deep Elm Records. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the first label I ever knew of to like use the word emo in their sort of marketing.
Yeah.
And
that makes
so we
sense,
thought of ourselves as part of that scene, that post-hardcore emo, when it meant something entirely different than it does now, scene. Because back then emo was a little bit a word for misfit rock bands who just didn't, who either were too happy or too sad or too slow or too whatever it was, just kind of it was kind of an anti-macho thing, basically, is like an anti-masculine rock thing. So keeping aggressiveness, keeping heaviness, keeping all that stuff, but without the sort of bullshit posturing. So we were into that, and we basically, as far as I can tell, just weren't cool enough. You know, our music was a little too, I think, I would say bombastic. You know, it was a lot of dynamic, which kind of fit with that scene. But I loved big choruses, and Sean loved big, thick guitars. And we were raised on Zeppelin as much as we were on Fugazi and Bad Brains. You know, it was, you know, and I in particular was raised on fucking Sinead O'Connor and Simon and Garfunkel and Ricky Lee Jones and Tom Waits and all this stuff that Prince, that had nothing to do with rock and roll. So we were a weird band at that time. And so the indie labels didn't want us, long story short. So we stumbled into Sony, not like, let's go get that brass ring, but they're the only ones who would sign us.
Okay.
Truth be told. So that's kind of what happened, and it really saved my life, because our first advance, though it wasn't much, got me through the first couple years of being a dad, you know, and kept food on the table. And so those Sony years were really much more for me about, not to be too hyperbolic about it, but essentially about survival. And by that I don't mean literally staying alive, but I do mean staying out of the squalor that I grew up in and raising my daughter in at least somewhat more of a stable environment emotionally and financially. So it wasn't, you know, I've never lived in a full house. I've never had a washing machine. I've never had a dishwasher. I've never had a new car. I've never had a lot of things. And that's when I started making a living, a modest living, playing music, was back then, and then it never stopped. So that's what I think of the most when I think of those early major label days. And I also think of these days, because I don't know what the fuck I'd do if I were a musician starting out now. I just, the old major label system that everyone complains about, I mean, they definitely had their issues, and like the fucking Spotify and iTunes overlords make Sony and Atlantic look like a really benevolent arts foundation.
This is very true, isn't it?
It's a whole different thing with money these days. So I don't know what the fuck I would do now, but back then I felt very lucky.
Cool.
So that's what's good. My life was real full. I actually don't remember a lot of it. I remember some little moments, but I was going so hard, just, you know, at first trying to keep my marriage together and be a dad, and the marriage fell apart, but we focused on, you know, our parenting, which was great. And then there was music, and I had to, you know, do that. It was a lot. There's a lot going on. Yeah. Suffice to say.
What were some of the most fun tours around that time?
The thing that comes to my mind is touring with Strife. They were a hardcore band from Southern California, and they were just total fucking troublemakers. And so we'd prank each other on the road and stuff, and we would do shit like, you know, if we were on tour in some, you know, roadside restaurant in the middle of nowhere, we'd always get the whole thing of like, oh, are you guys in a band, kind of thing. And so we would pick whatever bands were the most famous, like in terms of a hit single, but the most faceless. And we would just say we were them. So, we would be Dishwalla or, any number of bands that no one knew what they looked like. They just heard the tune. So we would just pretend to be them. So we would just do goofy shit. And that at the time, that really appealed again to my Boston kind of like fucking shake it up, take the piss kind of. That's a lot of my energy, So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Sensefield, playing with Sensefield, just because they were the most like us of any band I thought we played with. We were kind of heavier than them, but it was the same sort of uplifting, get beyond the macho bullshit kind of vibes. Loved playing with Snapcase. They appealed to sort of like the angular, cerebral kind of rock vibes that I've always really loved. Those are some touring partners. I mean, 7 Seconds took us out on our first actual kind of relatively national tour, and that was just a total education in how to be a cool band and how to be cool to someone you take out on the road. And they are, of course, this iconic punk band, and watching them play was just fucking mind-boggling. So I really, really remember that. That's all pretty early days. I think when it got more into Sony days, honestly, the tour got a lot shittier in some ways. But really? I still remember, yeah, sure. I mean, we were paired up with bands like Monster Magnet. No shade to them. I actually like their music, and they were incredibly kind, but we were not a fit for their audience. And we weren't really a fit for most bands' audiences. We really weren't. I mean, we whether we were playing with Promise Ring or Monster Magnet, we didn't fit. And we didn't really know where we stood. So we definitely had fun with Deftones. Obviously, they were some dear friends of ours. We had a lot of fun in the Sacto scene. And Deftones took us out on some of our first tours because they were like always kind of like, a couple rungs up on the ladder. So that was cool. Touring with them in Willhaven, that was just like going with your buddies. You go out and fucking rock. It was, looking back, it's a pretty lucky thing to go out with all people from your hometown, essentially, and go play tunes. So that was really fun. But again, by the time we got to the major labels and the more sort of touring centric record cycle thing, I was so fucking stressed out. And the band had enough difference in it, which is part of what I think made us interesting. But we just fought a fucking lot. And so I think the more stressed out my outside the band world got, simultaneously the band was becoming less of a refuge and more of its own pain in the ass. And I'm sure I was becoming a pain in the ass to the other people in the band. I had very different needs than any of them. I couldn't really tour for very long. I mean, I could, but I didn't want to tour for very long because I wanted to make sure I got home to see my daughter. And again, so trying to juggle these really intensely big things, it fucked up a lot of opportunities for us, because we couldn't as a band do longer tours because I wasn't available for that. So even if we'd get offered a tour that might make sense, I didn't want to do it. And eventually I just was so sick of the sort of Adidas and dreadlocks kind of heavier rock kind of thing that was happening then what really sealed the deal for the end of the band was we got offered a tour with Incubus and System of a Down. And at the time, Incubus was just starting. They were sort of like blown up in a small way like Deftones, but not huge yet. So it was still going to be smaller venues. And then System, Toxicity hadn't even come out. They weren't big or anything. So it was either going to be System or us opening. But it would have been a cool 3-band package. And, in hindsight, of course, I think maybe if we could have stuck it out and kept going. But at the time, it was going to be a longer tour. I didn't want to do that. I was really burnt on just fucking shitty bros in the audience. I just wasn't into it. And life was just, again, it was really, at that point, my kid was like 3. I was getting divorced. The band was fighting. We were fucking tired. Neither of our records had sold very well. It was a stressful time. So it was the right move for me. That was yeah, it was a tough time.
So when that came to a head, did you just, I guess, just go back to, I say go back, but kind of just, I guess, find a job and just take care of things where you were, or
Yep, I just went straight. Nah, a job, I think even at that point was kind of out of the question for me. I think I might have been ruined for the workforce.
Right.
I mean, and again, if I hadn't been able to pull it off doing solo shit, then of course I would have gone and gotten a job. But luckily, I was really into communicating with people. I had a little website for my solo stuff. I had started onelinedrawing.com and basically two really crucial things happened. One, Happy Walters, who had signed Far to Immortal along with Paul Pontius. Happy was the president. So Paul's actually the guy that signed his, credit where credit's due, but Happy was the president of the label. He and I had kept in touch, and he very, very kindly gave me, I think it was 20 grand to make demos and to kind of give me a little bit of relief. So that was a massive, again, 20 grand obviously isn't much, but at the time it was a very, very big chunk of money for me, and it really helped me at a crucial time in my life. And his thing was like, I want right of first refusal basically, but I don't know. I think he knew that I probably wasn't ever going to try, or, anytime soon going to try and be on a major label again. He knew what, obviously he had gone through it with me, and I'd pissed him off a few times too. But he was really kind. So that was a kindness that I'll never forget. And then also just all the people I was talking to on we called it the share board on the website. They just encouraged me to show them what my demos were, instead of waiting to make a pro album.
Okay.
And it was that became the first sketchy EPs, which was the first one-line drawing things, and those were just demos from home, and they really, they turned into the rest of my musical life. Essentially, that became a kind of guiding light. Like, oh wow, I can just keep in touch with this smaller group of people that really loves what I do, and show them what I'm up to. And if they keep showing up, then again, I'll never get rich, but I can keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point as well, had things kind of reached further than just the US and kind of into Europe at that point?
Well, so I'd had a taste of Europe right at the end of Far. Okay. And so one of the very, very, very first one-line drawing shows, and the first place I ever sold Sketch EP #1, in like a little black cardboard sleeve on literally burned CDs that I burned at using the CD burners in the offices of Sony Germany, because this festival, Rock am Ring, who had put Far on the year before, I believe, asked me back as a solo artist. And so that gave me an excuse to go over there again. And I made I made 50 copies of Sketch EP #1 just for this one festival show. And I sold them all, And it was just such an exciting moment for, I could just do this myself. It was just incredibly eye-opening for me. And that was when this kind of love affair with, I'm so sad I can't just say the EU anymore. When my love affair.
That's the whole thing, obviously.
I know, it's a heartbreaker. We can talk more about that if you all want to. But yeah, so it was that part of the world really, I just got so into it. It was just the scene hadn't been ruined in a lot of ways. The US scene was getting ruined in terms of Live Nation and all that shit hadn't kind of monopolized stuff as badly at that point. So there were still lots of small venues. There were lots of small venues with a bed upstairs where I could sleep. In mainland Europe, there's venues subsidized by the fucking government to put on shows. So no one's really worried about making money. They're just worried about putting on fun shows and having a cool place for young people to be. So there was just all this stuff that was so exciting for me. And so I just started going over there as much as I could really. And I was touring the U.S. a ton at that time too, and it was becoming more and more like living rooms, and as the smaller venues went away, and then just kind of alternate venues and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that is definitely when I went with Sergio from Quicksand. He was doing a solo project, and me and him went over, and I guess it must have been 2000. And that's where I met Charlie, who then became the drummer for New End Original. He was playing with Sergio.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's where a lot of stuff started for me. That was 99 and 2000 were where I mourned far and let that go and got my feet on the ground for what would be the rest.
And I guess your solo and One Line Drawing and stuff has kind of sustained you all these years throughout all that, right?
Yeah, with a big assist in the mid-aughts from Gratitude.
So did that come out quite organically then, or?
Yeah, I was doing as well as I ever have in music around 2003. The solo stuff was going great. I was on a label called Jade Tree. They were putting out records that were getting to people. I was touring with bands, and I was touring with like Thursday and Coheed and bands that had kind of grown up on Far and still loved what I was doing. And I would just hop on their bus, and so I wouldn't have to pay for transportation or anything. I would just get a bunk in the bus and just go up and be this little weird dude opening up the shows and selling a bunch of merch. So like life was good. It was busy, but it was fucking good. And my friend Mark was talking about starting a band, and if you met Mark, he's just an incredibly enthusiastic person, and it's very infectious. And he was just like, let's just try writing some songs. And I was into it. And then the songs very, very quickly turned into a lot of, interest from record labels, which I hadn't even thought about in years. And he led that charge, and he knew people. We got signed playing our acoustic guitars on the top floor of Atlantic Records for the president. I mean, it was very old school. It was very simple. And it's not to say there weren't a lot of moving parts, but for me, going into the band, I said to Mark, like, I don't want to do the regular dog and pony show, but I guess if you just want to write some songs and see where they take us, like, okay. And as it turns out, I got an infusion of money from that deal that was really, really helpful in raising my daughter and making sure that we were okay. And so it was like this strange revisiting. And then I very quickly learned, again, what I don't like about larger scale, I would say probably industry in general. I would say it'd probably be the same no matter what I did, but in this case, larger scale rock industry. And again, being in a band was tough, and just dealing with label people, it just wasn't for me. But it was a really important time in my life in a lot of ways, and the songs that came from it were very fun.
Did you find, I guess, that some of that success from, I guess, the Gratitude years had a quite a big knock-on effect in terms of your followers in going into kind of your solo one-line drawing stuff?
It's funny. I've had a few different stages where I suppose I've kind of flirted with wider acceptance enough to kind of pull in some new people. So, of course, Far was the first thing that when I was doing solo stuff, I was the guy from Far, and that, was totally okay with me. And then eventually I was kind of the guy from One Line Drawing. And then Gratitude, I would say especially in the UK, we kind of started to get a little bit of a toehold. We played Reading and Leeds, which was incredibly fucking exciting for me as a childhood kind of dream thing. And I would say there are quite a few people who are still around who weren't old enough to see Far or even early one-line drawing, but did see Gratitude. And we played with like Funeral when Funeral for a Friend was real big, and that was, they were just this very, I remember just they were this very popular within the UK band for a while.
Yeah,
And there's a special
they're kind of at their
thing when a
height then.
band, when a band gets real big in the UK, but doesn't necessarily break anywhere else, there feels like a real love there from the UK that I haven't seen. It's like a local band, but the size of a country.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sometimes very jealous of it, honestly. I think of Canada and I think of the UK and I'm sure it happens in other countries too, but those two countries especially, probably because they're primarily English speaking. An artist can get really big in those countries without even giving a shit about the States, and then if they decide to come to the States, they come with a lot of resources behind them. And I've been envious of that at different moments in my life, and but we were the beneficiary of that, because we got to play with this band that was really having a love affair at that time with England.
Yeah.
And I think and we were a complimentary band for where they were going to, because they were drifting a little more into sort of melodic, kind of
they were at that
anthemic
point,
territory.
Weren't they? Yeah, it's true.
They hadn't gone over to where their old fans didn't like them anymore, but they were broadening their appeal both by sticking around and by writing just bigger songs. So it was a great time to be touring with them. And but those shows would be funny because we'd play like a half an hour, but then I'd be there and people who knew me from Online Drawing would be like, oh, like come and play some more. And so then I'd end up, grabbing an acoustic guitar and going to a hallway of some big venue or just out to the van or wherever and like play for another hour just alone. So it was this, that's when I would say Gratitude is when just all of the worlds, New End and One Line and Far, it all just started to melt together. And I realized that all I really wanted to do was just sort of, I had known it already, but it really solidified to me that I just wanted to make music for anyone that wanted to listen and not worry about the wide scale success, but just play and keep in touch with people. So I think, yes, Gratitude on that level, especially around the UK, was a big help towards broadening my little world. And then, there's still people I know who the first band they heard me in was Gratitude, and then they've gone back and heard the other stuff, and it's been really cool.
You got. I don't know how true this is, and it's nothing I was made aware of. But there's quite a couple of strange collaborations I saw on Wikipedia with Lupe Fiasco.
That's truth. Yeah.
What's the story there?
I mean, it was the whole story is truly surreal. I was on tour as Online Drawing, and again, I don't remember a lot, but I remember this real clearly. And I got a phone call on very early flip phone, cell phone thing, and the reception's terrible and all that. And it's a guy saying he's from Lincoln Park. And I'd never hung out with them. I obviously knew who they were and stuff. They're massive. And I think they liked Far and stuff like that. And I think that's why he called me. But he had heard the first one-line drawing thing that I ever done that was on like a compilation. I was the first song on a comp, fittingly called "Songs for the Brokenhearted." And Jimmy Eat World was on it before they blew up. And it was like a '99 compilation, and a lot of other bands that went on to do cool things. But so I was the first song on that comp, the song Pollyanna. And it was produced in a kind of a neat way. My friend Dana helped make it. And so anyway, it turns out, Mike Shinoda from Lincoln Park was on the phone saying that he really loved Pollyanna and he loved what I did in Far, and would I come and sing, like basically would I come down and do a session with him, because he had some ideas. And his ideas were singing a couple of hooks for a thing he was doing called Fort Minor. So I ended up on a couple of tracks on that record. And to date, the most popular thing I've ever had my name on is a single of theirs called Where'd You Go? And I was in that video and sang on the chorus. And it was definitely the most famous I ever was to my daughter's friends, because that song was really big in the States, and they would recognize me from the video. So anyway, he was calling, and that was that part of the session. Then the other part was he was producing a track for this artist Lupe Fiasco, and I've always adored hip hop and grew up on it as much as I grew up on rock and roll, and I've never wanted to be a rapper, and I have really, I've dreamt a lot of being the guy or woman or whatever, like someone who sings the hook in between the verses. I love the hook. So he wanted to play with the first lines of a Far song called Nestle, and he always wrote and he always called and he never lied because he never said anything at all. And he didn't want to sample it, though. He wanted me to re-sing it so he could more effectively use it. So I went in, I sang the first bit of Nestle for him, and that's what ended up on the Lupe track. And I love so much the way they employed that hook. And it's, all bias aside, it's my favorite track on that. It's on a record called Food and Liquor. And it's a really great record. But yeah, my little bit happens in a tune called The Instrumental. And I think I might be the only artist to have kind of been on a Kimya Dawson record and a Lupe Fiasco record. I think that and then if you throw in Lupe, Deftones, Kimya, like that's a pretty good triangle. And then lots of other fun stuff too. But yeah, I love looking back on it, all of the different places I've gotten to go to and all the different people I've gotten to play with because of music and doing it in a kind of idiosyncratic, genre-free way.
You mentioned you've been finishing up a book the last few years. What's the deal with that? Is that out now, or like is it?
Yeah, so it's out. It's called Alone Rewinding, which is an anagram of one line drawing because I'm a fucking nerd.
Not the first time you've done the anagram thing, right?
Exactly. Well, actually, and it's funny, at the time when I thought of the anagram that became new and original, I thought of I was playing with one line drawing and seeing all the anagrams I could make from it, and one of the other ones was Alone Rewinding, and I thought, if I ever release any sort of anthology or a memoir or something, that's the fucking title. And that this was in 2000. So
wow, okay.
when it kind of came around that I did want to try writing something down in earnest to kind of see what the hell had happened over the years, that was the immediate title. So yeah, so it's Alone Rewinding, 23 Years of Fatherhood and Music. And what it became is a book that it talks about my childhood for sure, but mostly it's from 94 on, because it's about when I started doing music for a job and when I became a father, and those two paths and how they pulled at each other and also supported each other, and my journey through that adventure of trying to be a working artist and a decent dad. I think it came out really beautifully. I recorded the audiobook as well and made a whole soundtrack kind of anthology thing that starts with like my high school talent show and moves on through all the different bands and stuff. And
right.
It was a really I'm not a particularly nostalgic person in general, and it was a really fun, intense, painful, overwhelming thing to do, to really take a look and try and to try and tell the story as best I could, like what the fuck had happened. So yeah, it exists. It's I consciously didn't put it on Amazon or the audiobook on Audible or whatever, because I have a real thing about middle entities that take a bunch of money for doing nothing. I know
Okay.
they're doing distribution, but digital distribution is just one of the great scams of ever, because it's not like a fucking store. So I really that's my rebel streak, is like, fuck you, I'm just going to do it on my own. So I did a Kickstarter for it. That went great, and I pressed up 2,000 books. I've still got a few hundred. So
where can people get a hold of that now?
The the website, jonahmatranga.com.
Okay.
And for anyone out there obviously listening, just my name is so fucking weird that if you just do your best guess to spell Jonah Matranga and then add the word music, you will totally find me. It'll be very easy.
The
So
beauty
that's
of
my
Google these days, yeah.
yeah, it's my assurance to you is that I've got a very Googleable name because it's weird.
Yeah.
There's lots more Jonahs in the world now, so Jonah won't cut it. But if you just do Jonah and then mangle Matranga and then add music, you'll find me.
Cool.
So that's, and so the website has, again, ever since the first onelinedrawing.com, it has always been the center of my musical life, and it's tough these days. Again, I don't know what I'd do if I was starting these days because networks kind of rule. Like if you're not participating in Instagram and Facebook,
Yeah.
as an artist, it's real tough to get out there,
Yeah.
or really jockeying on Spotify for streams, or there's other techniques,
Yeah.
there's other strategies, but they all involve dealing with a middle entity who generally takes all the money. And so the website is a more sustainable way in the sense that if someone buys a book from me for $20, I get the fucking money. But also it's a way that I get to communicate where I don't have to compete with advertising. I don't have to be bothered by trolls. I don't have to worry about my, my data being, and my communication and my art and everything else. I don't have to worry about that being, used and mined to make me a better consumer or to make the people who like my music better consumers. It's just a place that I am increasingly keeping everything. And right now, actually, my goal for this year, aside from releasing something new, is to build a world where if people want to come and find out just about anything, whether it's, my personal history, my musical history, all of the bands, all the albums, I just wanted to come to one place and be able to at least find it and listen to it and hopefully help support me in making more of it. But the point is really just to have a little island on the internet where it all exists, because it breaks my heart the way it can get so splintered up and unfocused these days.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. It's a nice ethos to have, I guess.
My favorite thing about the internet has never been promoting myself in a wide way. I don't really like doing that dance, but rather the ability to communicate with someone really far away, especially like to set up a tour in the UK, just, from my email list or whatever, it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
And it's tragic for me that artists have more tools than we ever had before to reach people directly and to show them our music directly. And there are so many entities, from, Spotify to Facebook, who have inserted themselves in the middle of that relationship and basically fucked it up. And because no one can make a ton of money, can make Spotify money just providing artists really good tools to communicate with people directly. Tools are kind of difficult to find, and they're getting to be a little bit better now, but the internet had such great promise, I thought, especially independent artists, and it's really, it's become a lot more difficult, as any working artist will tell you.
Well, I guess, you've always got, like you say, you got that list of emails where you can literally just go anywhere in the world and get those shows. I know.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, though, the email list is such an antiquated thing. So my central concern right now is for people who want to hear from me, how do I effectively keep in touch with them without annoying the shit out of them or further overwhelming them with more emails, and
right.
So I'm playing with different ways because I like direct contact. I don't, I that's what I enjoy, and it's more and more difficult to do that. I'm looking at sort of push notification stuff. I've thought about building an app, but that also, the app overlords, it's an incredibly expensive barrier to make a functioning app that would do anything interesting for anyone and be worth anyone having. But So it's a trip. It's a very interesting landscape right now.
Do you do a lot of the kind of web editing stuff for your website, or have you got kind of support with that?
It's always been pretty DIY. I had a friend who helped me very early on in the very early days of the internet, and then I did it myself somewhat. I've had for sure help along the way. My friends Mark and Micah and various webmaster people along the way, and I've done a lot of it myself. But again, I've been so sad that a lot of really basic tools that I would have enjoyed having were very difficult to develop unless you were a skilled web developer or had the money to pay one. Right. Only recently I found this platform called Bandzoogle. I'll shout them out. They are the first company I've seen to make a platform that an artist could use that pretty much covers all the bases. They've got subscription service built in where you can do kind of like an ongoing crowdfunded patronage kind of thing that I'm doing, which is super fun. They've got good, easy music players, a pretty good interface that you don't have to know about too much about the internet to do, basically, about web development and web design. So they're pretty great, and they've opened up a lot of doors for me. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying doing my own website a lot more than I have for the past several years, because I'm finally doing it in a way that I feel like I'm able to deliver an easy and fun experience for people who care.
I mean, I know you talk about the whole your kind of living small ethos, and obviously that's helped kind of sustain kind of part of your career and enabled you to I guess bring up your daughter, like as you say. I mean, obviously on the road you get lots of, I guess, support from the relationships you develop. Well, what does that kind of look like at home for you? That kind of living small world.
I mean, it looks like a little rent-controlled apartment, and that there's too much stuffed into it. I got married last year as well, which was a big and beautiful thing for me as my daughter kind of grows up.
Congratulations!
Thanks, man. Feels really good.
How old is your daughter now then?
Well, my daughter turned 25 last year. Right. Yeah. Wow. So she's all grown up. So she's out of the house.
Yeah.
So now my sweetie's here, and we both are relatively cluttery kind of creatures. So looks like an overstuffed apartment, and a lot of music gear laying around, and working on my website. Just working on staying in touch with people. I'm actually enjoying. I was just talking to Amatabi about about how podcasts to me right now are really having a moment, and what I'm enjoying. Obviously, some people are being really successful making them and all that stuff. And what I'm digging is a lot of the smaller kind of DIY podcasts. They kind of remind me of zine culture in the 90s when in the hardcore and punk and indie world, there were lots of people making little paper Xerox magazines with their little poems and shit on there, and and I would do a lot of interviews with zines. And now I'm talking on more and more podcasts, and I'm having that same feeling that it's like someone just doing their little idea and doing the part to get and I'm so happy that there's a technology that's allowing for that, because there was a real democratization of journalism, I think, that happened with zines, where people who really gave a shit were producing these little things that would really get the word out in some way or another. And I'm hoping that podcasts can be similar these days.
I mean, I think we've been really lucky, haven't we, Chris, in terms of, I guess, people who are just, I guess, from an era as well, they were just just really pleased to just come on and talk to us and have these kind of nostalgic moments about their careers, I guess, I mean, we've been really lucky, and it's really nice to speak.
We have been really lucky, and it's just nice for us just how accessible it is compared to, like, 'cause, we grew up playing in bands and stuff, but now we're sort of like mid to late 30s. It's just like we can it feels like we're still involved in music by doing this, you know what I mean, like without having to go to band practice 3 nights a week or whatever. So yeah, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just had a conversation with a guy doing a podcast over in the States called Peer Pleasure.
Okay.
And he had a very similar story. And I have the feeling that, again, that for me, the music scene has always been made up of, people in bands, but also people who either used to be in bands or want to be in bands or don't even want to be in bands. They just love music and they love the scene. Yeah. And there's such a, when it happens right, it's a really functioning ecosystem because everyone's doing what they want to do and supporting each other and doing it as well. And so, his story sounded a lot like yours, and I have the feeling that's a lot of people, and I'm just really happy it's happening.
Awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool. Well, I think that's a quite a nice place to wrap up.
Great.
So we'd appreciate all the time you've given us, and we'll let you.
Yeah. It's been a blast, and I look forward to hearing it. And just thanks for giving a shit enough about music, much less me, to talk. It feels really sweet.
Yeah, no worries. I hope to see you back over here, I guess, sometime in the not too distant future.
Yeah, totally. And please do direct people to the site, and because there's a sweet community there. And whenever I get over there, probably it's going to be in the summertime. But please come and say hi and remind me about our fun wasting timeness.
Yeah, awesome. Right, cheers,
right,
Jonah.
100%.
Enjoy your day, mate.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, we'd love it if you could subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or anywhere like that. Also, check us out on social media. If you just search for Wasting Time Podcast on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, give us a like or a follow on any of those. And also, we love hearing from listeners as well. So feel free anytime to drop us an email at thewastingtimepodcast@gmail.com, or obviously you can message us on social media as well. But we'll catch you next time.
For you to arrive, and I can't wait for you to arrive, and we'll say